Good evening, guys. Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdurrahman, and we are back with our next weekly jam. We have Qasim Nazir today, and he'll be talking on getting started with Postman. So, without any further delay, over to you, Qasim.
Thank you, Rahman. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Rahman, can you hear me?
Yep, perfectly.
Great. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Uh,
All
Please
right.
confirm when it's visible. All right. I think you should be able to see it now.
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone. This is me, Qasim here, and I am going to talk about the APIs and how we can work in Postman tool with the APIs. So before we start working in Postman, I would like to first introduce what an API actually is. So API stand for Application Programming Interface. So what does that mean is that it provide us an interface where we can connect two different kind of applications together. Why we need to connect two different type of applications? Obviously, when we want to send data from one application to another application and they do not understand the language they have, the programming language they are built in, so we have to introduce middleware. We have to introduce a third party that can help that communication, that one application can send information to another application. So API plays a role of an intermediate. We can understand this concept with the help of an example, right? So in this screen, you can see that we have people who are in the restaurant and they're here for the food. And then these guys are in the kitchen and they are one who prepare the food. So we do not go directly in the kitchen to order our food. Reason can be anything. Like for example, I speak Urdu, but the chef here in the kitchen, they might speak German or maybe they speak English or French. So we cannot communicate with them. So there is a barrier. So we need a person, a body here between us and the kitchen so that we can place our order. We can order our food. We can check the status of that order, or um, we can pay the bill. So actually, that person is the waiter. So waiter is actually what an API is. That it helps the communication between two different systems, and those systems do not understand directly each other. So API is provide you can say a standard, a global standard interface that these both application would understand in order to communicate. So communication is that we are passing data from one system to another system. Moving forward, for example, we have an API that is lying here in the middle, and then we have the database on the right side, and then we have the user application. Just consider this application is the very famous Food Panda application, and you want to order food. So we will be ordering food by sending request, and this request would be actually a call to an API. So how an API is called? It is called through a URL, right? And then this URL would be like there would be some business logic written here in the API. Maybe when we are ordering food, it would be checking that if everything related to that order is okay, that they are ordering uh, pizza, maybe coding and everything that need to be there is okay. If that is okay, it is the order is sent to the system, and then this system would return some response, and then that response would return to the application where that request was initiated. So this API actually plays a role that helps communication between two different systems. So these two systems, the one on the right and on the left, they're entirely different systems. And this guy here, the API would provide an interface. So it's a pluggable, it is something that will provide the pluggable interface, and system can connect to its right, left, or here and there, so they can communicate with each other. And you can see this, how this is relatable to the example we have seen earlier. One more benefit of API is that, for example, we have, if we consider the example of, you can say, Facebook application. So every one of us at least use Facebook once in a day. And sometimes we use that from our mobile phones, sometimes we use from the tabular devices, sometimes we are on our laptops or maybe desktop computers and we use it there by opening it into the browsers, right? So we have different interfaces available to use this application, the Facebook application. Now, this is the point to understand is that whether the business logic, for example, the login function, we provide username and password to log in to the Facebook system. So whether or not that login function is written in each of the application, whether it's a mobile application or one we open into the browsers or one that we open into tabular devices, does they all have their own login functions? So answer is no, because that login function is written once here in this API. Because API usually holds the core business logic. How would that business run? How would that login feature run? That would be written here in the API. From these interfaces, from mobile application, tabular, or these browser, these are just the interfaces. We would be calling login API here. So when we pass the username and password, it would go here into the login API, and then we'll have the business logic written here. Um, if the user is authenticated, that means that if they uh, lie in this system, in this database, if their user record is here, so it would give access to the Facebook dashboard or Facebook application to this user from wherever it is accessed. So this is the benefit of this APIs, that we have to write the logic once, and then we can create different type of interfaces based on our needs. Um, so it would save a lot of cost for development. Abdurrahman, are we not entertaining any kind of questions?
We don't have any questions so far,
All right.
but we'll take the questions at the end.
Yeah.
If
So guys, whoever is listening to this stream, please, if you have questions, you can post it. I'm happy
Yep,
to
feel
answer.
free to post it in the chat window, and we'll
Yeah.
pick up from there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, so API run on HTTP protocol or HTTPS. So S is for the protocol that is like more secure protocol. So HTTP and HTTPS only have difference of that security. So now we have, in order to like use the API, we have different kind of um, HTTP methods available, or we also call them as HTTP verbs, VERBs. Yes, you heard it right. That verbs that are like um, for use in the tenses, English tenses. So get, post, put, delete. So these are different HTTP methods or HTTP verbs we use. There are few others. We'll see them in a short while. So actually, when we want to get an information or data, from the database using an API, we have to request it through the get post. As its name suggests, that we are going to get some information. We're going to get maybe an object of any entity we are looking for. So get would help with that. And when we are trying to create a new record into the database using this API, we have to take help from the post HTTP method. And moving ahead, if we want to update an existing record in the database, or maybe we want to update a new file, right? So we would be using put type of API. So put is to update any record into the uh, into our database or maybe the file management system. Because API, we can update the data, we can like create new record, we can get information, we can download files, we can upload files. So APIs are used for this kind of purpose, right? So delete, as its name suggests, then we want to delete a resource from the database. We would be using delete API in um, in our program. Moving forward, I think we are done, almost done with the slides. So I already have explained this. So there is put, and then we have the patch as well. So the difference between put and patch is that often this is confused with each other, that they are both same. Well, they are both same because they are both used to update a resource on the server. But in case of put, it actually replaces whatever is sent in the body to whatever is on the in the database. So it would replace it. So that is why we have to send the full object in our put request, so that it um, should replace all of it. On the other hand, the patch is to modify. Uh, Again, it is an update. You can say request, but it would we call it as a partial update, because we don't need to send actually the full object. We'll only send whatever we need to update. For example, if we have an employee's information, let me open the notepad real quick. No. Right. So, for example, if we have an employee's record, let me get. Just give me a second. Okay, we can create one. For example, we have an employee. Okay, and employee may have their ID and their name. Maybe we call it as a full name, and then they have their uh, mobile number, maybe their salary, and maybe their department, right? So if we use put, so we will be actually sending all of these um, in the body. If we not send this, for example, if I only send, for example, I want to only update the user full name. For example, if their name is Qasim Nazir, right? And I want to change the spelling of Nazir, and I want to do it like double E. And if I only send this, obviously I would be sending an ID in the URL. So if I'm sending this using put, so it what it would do is that it would replace everything. For example, if the mobile number was already in the DB and maybe department information, so it would delete everything from there and update only the full name. So that is why put is should be used with a care. We have to so for the partial update, if we want to only update a certain you can say uh, column in the database, so we'll only then we should use the patch instead of put. I hope that difference is clear. Right. So here is the format that is actually used to uh, like when we are using API and we are sending a request um, via API, so we would be using this format. This is very famous format. It is called as JSON format. So it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So this is how we create actually an object in the JavaScript. That is why it is called as JavaScript Object Notation. So uh, it's a name value pair. We have uh, name and then we give it to value, and here you can say we have an array right here. So this array is actually for the employees. This is one record of the employee here, that they have a first name and they have last name, and then we have multiple record of different employees, so they are all comma separated. So this is JSON format. We would be trying it out in a while. Okay. Right. Now we are actually going to see what Postman is, where we can download it from. So let me open, uh, yeah, here. So if you are not familiar with the Postman earlier, so you can like write in your browser Postman download. You'll land on this page. Here you can like download this. It would automatically detect your operating system. For example, if you're using Mac or Windows, and then you can download it from here. And once downloaded, you can open it, and here it is, right? So this is the interface of Postman. So you can see that we have this. We call this middle area as the builder area, and this is the sidebar. And then we have this the status bar down there. We'll be seeing it in a while. Okay, how to use Postman. So let us get started. So first of all, we have to create a workspace. So workspace is something that actually need uh, to have a login created, right? So workspace is that it would create a workspace over here, which, and it can be something that can be shared among the teams. It can be something that can be shared, that can be only for this local system, because currently I am working on it as an offline because I haven't created any account. So I would be using uh, on my system as offline version. So let us create our first request. So there are different ways to create a first request. First of all, we have to create a collection. Actually, that collection is the collection of the request, and then we create a request into that collection. So for the collection, we can uh, go on to this top file menu, and then we create here. You can see we have different options. You can create collection. Now this collection is opened. Now, for example, if I give it a name, learning postman. So this collection is created. uh, you can see this right here. I would open up and you can see there is you can say a link to add a request. We can also do this from here, this view more option. You can see we have different option available. We can add a request over here, so we can add requests from here or here. Both would do the same thing. So once this is opened, um, right, so I would open up another URL. So here we go. Yeah. So regress.in. This is you can say uh, this is a fake API site that gives us some fake APIs that we can use for the learning purposes. Okay. So let me share its URL in the chat. So if anybody needs it, they can copy it. Right. Okay, so if I click on, so it provides us like different, you can say fake APIs right here. You can see these are get type of APIs, and we have post, put, patch, delete, everything, right? So let's try out our first API, that is get type of API. So what we can do is if I click over here, you can see that if I click over here, this things changes. So I'm clicking here. So I would right click on this. It would open up here. You can see it has, um, when this request was sent to the server, it has loaded the user's object. There are multiple record of the users. And so what would I do is that I would copy this URL from this site, and I would come to this. Now I would paste it in the chat, right? And I'm going to save this. Once this is saved, you can see now we can run it by clicking this send button, right? When when we would run this, you'll see the response here in this response section. Okay, then we'll study what a response is. Okay, I'm going to send it. It is taking some time. Now it has returned us the response. Okay, so response is in the JSON, as we already talked about it, that the response would be in the JSON format. So how we can read it, that it is saying that we have total number of record 12, and then we have two pages, and this is one object for in the employee or user, where we can see their ID, email, first name, last name, and their avatar, or you can say an image. And we have like different objects of the user. Also, you can see there we have a status code, then we have this response time, and then we have size of this response, that if we save this response in the notepad, it would be of this size. Okay, what status code is? Status code are actually whenever we hit an API, whether it would be a success or it would be a failure, it would be an error. So in case of success, we get this 200 OK status code. So this 200 status code tells us that our API request ran successfully. Okay. Similarly, if we create a new record in the database, it would return some other uh, status code. So let's find out, if we create a new record, what kind of uh, status code we would be getting. So I'm going to get, okay, this was getting the all the users. We can also get a single users. So let me copy that URL quickly. And as you can see that the request name is new request. I can change it. So I can give it a meaningful name. So this was to get all users. Okay. So again, this was get all users. You can say it's updated. Now I'm going to create another request uh, right here. Add request. And then again, this is a get type of request, but this time I'm going to get a single user. So when I'm targeting a single resource from the database, it means that I have to send an identifier within my API as a, you can say maybe a parameter, maybe a value. So this is actually the user ID that I want information of a particular user. So I'm going to update its name. So this is get single user info. So name should be comprehensive. Name should tell itself that what this API is. Okay. So now I am going to save it, and then once I've saved it, now I am able to send it. Once I click on the send button, now you can see that it has given me only the record of employee that has ID 2. Okay, I can change it. I can maybe say 4. So now it has um, employees information that has ID number 4. So this is how we get uh, the single value using an identifier. Okay, let's move ahead and try to create a new record using API. So I'll be coming here again, and now I would be choosing the post request this time. Okay, here you go. Okay, for the post, now we actually have to pass some information as well. Okay, so I'm going to copy two things now. One, I would be copying this URL. I can actually copy this URL from here as well. I would simply copy this information, and I am going to create a new request users, and this time I have to change it to the post, right? Post is when we are trying to create a new record in into whatever resource base we are using. If it's a database, it means that I'm going to create a new record. So because we are talking about the user's record, so we are going to create a new record in the users table. Okay, so I'm using the post, but you can see that if I change its name, for example, I'm saying create user. Okay, its name is updated, but you can still see that it is showing get. This is because we haven't saved it. Once I click on the save, it would automatically update its name. Okay, right. So I would go back to that server again, and let me close this, open up this. Now we have to pass this information. Okay, how we can pass this information? Through Postman. So you have to click on the body, mhm, and then click on the raw, and then send this information. And do not forget to choose this JSON format, because we already have talked about it, that we send data in the JSON format, we receive data in the JSON format. But that doesn't mean that we only have JSON format to talk to the APIs. We have different other formats available, like XML, right? Okay, so what I did is that I click on this raw, I pasted the values over here, and then I chose the JSON format. Okay, right. So now everything seems to be ready. I have my request URL, and then post is selected. I have data to be updated. Now I would simply click save and then send this request. Right. So I told you that once when we create a new record, it show a different kind of status code. So let's find out. All right. So now we have response ready, and it is showing that the new person with this name is created. This is their ID, and this is their created date. And if we come to this status code, it is saying that 201 created. So 201 status code is returned once we have successfully created a record into our database. Okay, and this is the time, and this is the size. We have already talked about it. Okay, we can save a response. We can save this response in a file, or as an example. Once we save it as an example, it would be saved here in this workspace. But if we save it in a file, it would save this information in the JSON format. Okay, let me save it quickly and show it to you guys. Give me a second. Mhm. Right. So I'm saving it onto the desktop response. Okay, if we come onto the desktop, you can see it here, and I would open up it into uh, maybe Notepad. Simply drag it here, so you can see this that we have this response. So we can save any response if we want to. Right. So moving forward, now we are going to create another request. For example, now we are trying to update anything on the server. Okay. So I would copy it, and for example, I want to update a user. So first I have to create a new request, right? And then we can give it URL. First, I would change its name. For example, I say it's update user. I'm giving it a meaningful name, and I would choose the put here, then save. It has changed it to put. Um, I would copy this URL. Right. Why I'm passing ID in this URL? Because I want to update a particular record in the database. So when we are talking about the particulars, then we have to send the particulars. So this ID is um, telling us that when this API is hit, it would change the record in the database for the users who have identifier or ID as 4. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Again, now because we are actually updating something, so similarly like we did in the create, we have to come into the body section, into the raw, and okay, no, not this, sorry. Actually, we will copy this one quickly, paste it here, choose as JSON, click on the beautify, and then I would save it, and then I would send it. So now it is saying that it has updated this record on this particular date. Okay, so this is how we create object, we create or we update objects in the database using the Postman. Okay. Okay, let me quickly come to this and create a delete request. If I click on the delete, again for the delete, I would simply copy this get in request. What we can do is that I would create on this and click on the duplicate. It has created its copy. I would come into this and I would simply change its name to delete user. Okay, because it has same kind of URL because we are to delete a certain user from the database. Okay, so that is why we are sending a particular identifier in the URL. So simply I would, and what I need to change is that I have to change the HTTP verb here. So delete this time, saved, and we do not need to send any information in the body. Okay. So you can see that uh, the status code tells us that 204, which says that they haven't found that content for ID2. For example, if I say 1, save. Again, actually this is a fake API server, so it actually do not delete anything from the database, right? So that is why it is telling us this. If you come back to this and you can see this response, So it is actually in, this is the documentation. So this is actually saying that when you click on to this, you would get in this response. So that is why we are getting 2 for that. Okay, right. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the collections. Now you can see that I have two kind of collections. We can make a collection as favorite. So once that is made as favorite, so it would go into the top. So just consider that we have like tons of collections over here, and we have different kind of collections, and we have, for example, we want to uh, favoritize or make favorites, so it would bring them onto the top. Also, once we click on this view more button, we have different options available. For example, we can run a collection. If we click on the run collection, so this has opened the collection runner. So this particular window is known as the collection runner window. So you can see that we can run all of these uh, so collection runner tells us that it has the collection of all the requests that are in this collection. Okay. So previously you have seen that we have actually uh, ran all of ran all of these requests one by one, but the collection runners give us opportunity that we can run all of these requests at the same time. So we'll, if we click on this run collection, so it would actually run all of the collections at one time. Okay. So it is showing that iteration one because we have run them for one time. Okay. If I come back to that again, collection runner, we can, if we want to, for example, if we want to only run the delete one, not other one, so we can like choose between the requests. You can choose. So it would now run only the 3 requests. So this is how we can run a collection. It would also, we can also see its summary that these were the requests that were run, and we can run them again. We can export their result. So their result would be uh, downloaded in the form of JSON. Okay, I am right. So this was about how we can create, put, patch, update, delete requests in the you can say Postman. And right, so let's talk now about the variables. We can create variables in the on the different levels in the Postman. Okay, so let me come over here, and you can see that currently this we do not have any environment, right? So I would go into the file and click on the new. Now you can see that I have information option to create an environment. So I'm going to create a new environment. For example, I call it as my testing environment, right? um, so this is created. Now we can actually we can create different type of variables here in our you can say environments. For example, I am creating a variable as URL, and I'm going to give its a value. For example, I am picking up this URL and pasting it here, and now I'm saving it. So my environment is saved, but this is still not updated because we have to choose it. Now you can see we have testing environment here. Okay. So once we have this environment here, we can choose it. Okay. We have created this variable, where to use this variable. So I would come on to this, and uh, how we can use variables. You can see that if I come on to this, if I click on the side, we can see this is a variable and this is its value, right? So what I'm going to do is that I am going to call that variable here. How we call a variable in Postman? Uh, this curly bracket inside it, another curly bracket, and then the name of the variable. Okay, once that is done, if I hover my mouse onto this, you will see that it has picked that variable from the environment. So now it's saying that URL has this value and it has scope of environment. Okay, so if I save this and I run this, it would still work. See, it's still working. But now I am picking the value for the initial part of the URL from the from a variable which I've created. Okay, now just consider that we have, for example, in all of our requests. Let me update this instead of uh, API. We're using this variable. Okay, so in the variable, actually, we keep the most frequently used data. Because this URL was repeating again and again, so that is why we are keeping it in. I could have taken this API portion as well, but I chose only until this, right? I would simply do that for this. All right, so I assume everything is safe. Okay. Mhm. Right. So now just consider that this URL is coming for our testing server. But we have another server. I'm going to create another environment. For example, I'm going to create now a staging environment. You don't have to use this environment word while creating a new environment. I'm just um doing it to tell you that we can have any name for these environments. Okay. So for example, this in this environment, I am creating the same variable. Okay, its name is URL, but this time I am giving it a different URL. So instead of doing this, for example, the URL for my staging is maybe staging dot this, okay, and this, right? So I'm going to save this. Now this is saved. If I come onto this and I choose this, if I hover my mouse on this URL, you'll see that it is getting information from my testing environment because I have testing selected. So now you can see that URL is the variable which is defined in two different environments. For if I choose this staging environment, now if I bring my mouse over here, now this the value for that URL is changed. So by saying that we do not need to create a request again and again for the new URLs, but we define variable for the most frequent used data in our Postman. So URL was URL or the portion of the URL was used again and again. So I created it as a variable in the environment. So now I have a staging environment. So once I change the environment and I run this request, it would run on to the staging server. If I change it to the testing environment, it would run onto the testing server. So this is how we manipulate between different environments by creating variables within the environment. Right. If I come back to my, you can say, collection runner, you can see that we have information available here. We can select a file instead of, because until now we have, for example, if I talk about create user, so once this request is sent, it would create only one record in the database. What if I want to create multiple record in the database? For that, we can create a file, maybe a CSV file, and or maybe a JSON file, and we give path of that file into here, right? And then that it would run for example, if that file contain 4 or 5 iterations, 3 iterations, then this request would run for 3 times. Now it has run for 3 times because I have changed the iteration, right? So we can use run collection to get the files. For example, if we have this response file, if I pick this file as and I preview it, it has error because this is not actually formatted correctly. Now if I preview it, it still have errors because this is not the format we are looking for. So if it is in the correct format, it should be displayed and it can be previewed. So if we want to if we want to test the APIs for the data-driven testing, we need to create new files. So I would be probably covering that portion in our next um, session when we have that. I think maybe next week. So I would be actually creating a database where we would be actually creating the records. We would be actually manipulating the records, and we'll do that all practically. Okay. For today, we have one more thing to see, that we can view the Postman console. If I click on this, you can see this. We have this Postman console right here. So this actually tells us that how many requests were run, right? We can clear its log, and whenever we have a request, for example, if I um, do this and run this request, so it would actually shown here, and in this we can we can copy it, and also we can see the details of this request. For example, it has a header, then it has a body. If we have pass a body, you can see that this was sent in the body, and then response would contain that this particular user was created. And also we can see here that status code for this request. We can see the time log and all the informations in the console. Okay, coming back to our request, now we have few other things that we can see in the request, that we have authorization. So by authorization, we mean, let me close this out, that we can actually, so API can be secure. API can have the password, username and password. For example, if I click on this basic authentication, you'll see that we have to pass a username and password in order to get this API run. Because if we do not provide anything within the API, if that is a secure API, it would give us an error for unauthorized access. So authorization is actually for authorization. So this would also be covered in detail in our next session. API key is um, a key and its value. It can also be passed into the header to make an API secure. So these are different type of actually authentications we use in order to authenticate an API. Okay, and we've already seen the header. We can like pass different parameters in the header, and we have seen body already. Okay, the pre-request script, actually this would run before this before this uh, request is run. If we want to do something, we would be doing it here in this pre-request. So we have different type of snippets already available. For example, okay, and we write JavaScript code here. So I assume that you guys know the JavaScript already. So console.log quickly, and if I want to say, for example, hello, and I will save this. Now, if I open up the Postman, this, I would clear this, and now if I run this request, you'll see that before this request was run, we have this hello printed here, which is telling us that if we want to do anything before our request, we can do it here. So what we can do is that we can maybe create different type of variables. We can assign them value. We can get their values. Um, for example, and we can also run different type of requests. For example, if I want to get a variable, um, we have this snippet available. I'm clicking on this. You can see that this code is automatically typed here. So uh, for example, if I get its value URL variable, because we have created already that URL, and I'm going to print its value on the console. For example, I'm going to give it a name first. Now I'm going to now save and send this. Okay, let me first clear this. Send. So you can see that this URL is actually, we have get this URL from the variable, and hello was already written, and then we got the value of from the URL, this, and then we have this printed here. If I change the environment to maybe staging, so it would, this request won't run because there is no such um, staging.in, there is no such actual URL, but this you can see that the variable value is now changed. So this is how we use it in order to run a test. I would simply change this to the better one. Okay, and in the test is when we want to do something after our request has run. So for example, if I want to see that when my request is run, if I run this request, so it is returning me a status code of 200. Okay. Okay. So what would I do is that I would pick up this snippet. If I click on this, so this function would return. Uh, so actually, this is a test, right? So in the test-driven development, we can choose this test. So this test is actually saying that when, if the response contain this 200, okay, then it would actually get passed. So let me run this request. Now you can see that we have this test result over here. If I click on this, it is showing that status code is pass. Why? Because we have this status code 200 OK returned from this uh, particular request. What if I tempered it a little bit? What if I change it to 21 and change to 21 as well and save it? And now if I send, now it is showing the test result, but Now this is showing it as a fail. Why? Because I have tempered this snippet. Snippet is expecting 201, but we are actually getting 200. Okay, so there is a mismatch between the expected and the actual results. So that is why this case is failed. So this is how we can create test um, after we our API has run. So there are lot of snippets available. We can, for example, on when a certain test case is passed, I want to uh, send a request. Maybe I want to send a delete users request. Okay, so if I come to that and I would paste it here. Okay, this is to get users. Obviously, this won't run because now I'm into it and I should have like given the actual URL. So once this is done, we can run this or um, so this would be a kind of a test. So anything that we want to run before the request is run, that is in the um, that is actually in the um pre-request script, and anything we want to run after the request has run, that is in the test scripts. All right, that was pretty much it for today. Hopefully, we'll have another section on next Friday, probably. We'll see about it. Uh, that is it from my side, Rahman. I'm good.
Yep. Thank you so much, Kasim. I think we don't have any questions for now. Guys, if you have any questions, we have a couple of minutes left. Feel free to put them in the chat window. And if you cannot see the chat window, just refresh the page and it will be there. Kasim is here to answer the questions now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Let's see if we get any questions in. Let's wait for a minute. I think we don't have any questions. We'll have further sessions on Postman as well, as Kasim mentioned, and we'll have some more sessions in the coming weeks. So thank you so much, Kasim, for your time, and thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right.
Allah
Thank you,
Hafiz.
guys. I love it.